Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamualaikum. Ji ayanu pakhaira gale ni hao churushumme washmale. Ohio Gonzaimes, Guten Morgen, hola, boyo, privyet, kaifa hal? Harishuma chatore, ahlan wa sahlan marhaba. Buna mucho gracias, swabi amballi kare aya. Hoş geldin and ayasayo kuya morachi vato chi haljot kalimera khairutan. And a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into Behaviuor and watching World this morning. Alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Ms. Hajar Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, hello Hajar, assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much for introducing me. Jazakallah khair, Shahzad. So you were not feeling well. May Allah give you a shifa and get well soon.
Ameen.
And I just feel that generally this virus has mutated a lot, and I feel that there are a lot of people, especially in my surrounding, who are feeling ill, and all of them are complaining about the temperature, the sore throat and the cough, and some of them are also admitted in the hospital, and some of them are also complaining about the nausea too. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give everyone shifa out there, because health is the best thing, and I think we take it for granted a lot, and when we are deprived of that, then we realize that this was such a bounty and the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we've always taken it for granted, and now when it's not there, so we really and terribly feel its absence a lot, right? So and just talking about how the temperature in Islamabad is also very shifting. Some days it's very hot, some days it's very cold because of the rain and whatnot, but obviously we are going to discuss about the weather, we are going to discuss about the rains and this generally anomaly that we see in the weather patterns a lot. How does that entail, and what sort of rain predictions are outside, especially when we talk about the Pakistan's weather pattern. But Shahzad, first thing first, I would really like to ask you something about it, right? So you talked about, having fritters and samosas and whatnot because of the rain weather. So did you have the opportunity to go and eat it, or you were not feeling that well?
Well, certainly yesterday, I think this is not exactly what I did, but I wanted to have it. But while, I was about to leave my office, my workplace, somebody said that we've already had so many fritters and samosas and jalebis and whatnot, so it's best that we kind of refrain from it. So I kind of controlled myself, and since I'm on a diet now as well, so I'm trying that I actually convince other people to not to have it as well. Because imagine what happens is that, in our daily routine, we are so used to of consuming mutton, beef and all of these things as well, which certainly do contribute. But not just that, I think what happens is that we certainly need to look after what we eat, because that's exactly what we did just yesterday when we came back from Eid. We had a clinical dietitian over here to speak about it. But ladies and gentlemen, it's the weather which actually gets you bayman, So I think for everybody who's out there, it's better to control your mouth rather than complaining later on, because, I have a quotation to share, but I don't think that, it will be suitable for television as well. So please make sure that for whatever you're eating, you made smarter choices as well. And the weather shouldn't really play a role. I think that's it, because whenever the weather is nice away in Islamabad, the first thing which comes to mind is pakoras, samosas, pyaz wale pakode, palak wale pakode.
There is no harm in having pakoras and samosas, but make sure you have it in the proper balanced diet, because if not, then obviously you're going to feel the consequences of that. But we are going to discuss about the food, but I think first thing first, we also need to discuss about the rain, weather patterns, and what does it entail, because I was yesterday looking at a very grueling sort of the rainfall that is happening in the Oman and Bahrain, and we are seeing that there is an anomaly across the world about these weather patterns, because usually Bahrain does not receive that sort of rainfall. It is a desert, and it has a scarcity of the rainfall out there. But again, in Pakistan, we've seen that especially in our northern areas, we are receiving a lot of rainfall. What does that entail? And are we on the risk of the flash flooding? To talk about this, we are very glad that we have been joined by someone who is the expert in the field. He's an environmentalist, and he also happens to be the ex-DG Met. He happens to be Meher Sahibzada Khan. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
So wonderful to have you over here, particularly when you belong to the next village right to mine as well.
Yes,
I think it's wonderful to have you
but,
over here.
Really, I am feeling very much happy, and you have created such a taste by mentioning the pakoras, jalebis and their thing. Really, the water is running through my mouth.
I think because it's almost a week now that that we haven't had such food as well. So people will certainly kind of think about it. That the kind of luxury we had to ourselves while it was Ramadan. But sir, now talking about weather, so obviously because I've lived my entire life away in Islamabad. I've never seen such cold month of April, so how much of a climate change do you think is playing role? How much of a global warming is playing role? And what do we expect in coming days as well? Because in previous years, we have seen that there have been cloudbursts over here in Islamabad as well. We have seen that there have been thunder showers which weren't expected. There were gusty winds, which weren't expected. There were so many things which we have never ever seen growing up in Islamabad.
Yes, as you have talked about the climate change. Now, when we talk about the climate change, then we expect predicted weather events. Just like this year, you are noting that such type of the temperatures we are observing even in the month of the April.
True.
This is the period of the heat wave actually. You know that the Bisakhi, the cutting of the harvesting of the wheat crop season is in progress. So, this season has really been by the result of this climate change, that the temperature even in the Sakardu yesterday was at about to 3 degrees centigrade, and in Islamabad today it is about to 11 degrees centigrade night temperature. So, yesterday you have seen that there was a gusty winds, there was hailing in some areas, and the result of the rains that were being predicted. We issued advisory on the on 8th April, and we mentioned that in some areas such like situations may occur. Even in that advisory, we have also mentioned that in the tributary of the Kabul rivers, there may be the flash flooding, and the heavy flood chances, high flood chances are also there. So, the latest situations, that is now in river Kabul at Nusheira, 2,03,000 cubic water is flowing from that river, and that is of the that its intensity is to be the very high flood situation.
So we can expect flooding in Nusheira?
Yes, we are you can say that this situation is happening right now. So, but in the catchment areas of the Indus River, that is also generated low floods in the Tarbela. We are getting the water entering into the Tarbela lake is that about to the 1 lakh, and in Mangla, especially Mangla, that is also about to be the 80,000. So, these are beneficial up to the extent that our reservoir level are increasing, but the crops are being damaged
because I wanted
much.
to explore the relationship of the water and this rainfall with the crops. So, for example, Pakistan is an agrarian country, and is this rainfall good for the crops? What are the implications for that? How do you see this?
Yes, these are not good for the because you know that the harvesting season of the wheat crop, and really from the start of the day, during the last week, heavy rainfall has occurred in Sindh, Punjab, and KPK, and even in northern part of the countries. But now for the next 24 hours, maybe some break in this system, but a new system has entered into the Balochistan. As you have mentioned that Oman and its vicinities countries have received too much rain, and that is flowing now towards Pakistan, and Turbat has received too much rain during the last 24 hours. So, from the night of the tomorrow, then again it will affect to the most part of the Pakistan, and may generate flash flooding.
And sir, as an environmentalist, what sort of suggestion would you like to give out to ones who are invested in the agriculture? Because you mentioned that this rainfall is not good for the harvesting of the crops, right? So, what sort of precautionary measures would you suggest out to them? What should they do in the advent of this rainfall?
At this time, when this type of the weather is occurring, so the people should not have to start harvesting. So, the standing crops will have a good effect if they are in the fields. But if you will cut them and or either harvest them, that creates an issue for the farmers. So, they should have to wait for the next 6 days. I suggest that for the next 6 days, because the other weather system is also affecting from tomorrow, and so it will be better.
And that's exactly, you know, why we have you over here. You know, we certainly want people to be kind of prepared for it as well. You know, imagine that, you know, there are a lot of people who, you know, post-Eid certainly want to go, you know, with their family to different locations, and everybody really needs to be careful about, you know, how it might affect their journey, and that's exactly why we have the XDG Met over here. But sir, while we're at it, you know, while we are witnessing such changes as well, and such, I don't know, you know, so far, alhamdulillah, that the rain that we have received is full of rahmah as well, but unfortunately in the previous years we have received rain, and that too in such quantity that it was so hard for us to kind of manage. We have seen $40 billion of losses in terms of flooding as well because of the rain that which actually took place. Now imagine that, you know, that there's this research which says that, you know, that the glaciers are melting at a faster pace now as well. That too, you know, leading towards summers is more water. Even for a country like Pakistan who experienced such losses, how do you think that we really need to have a proactive approach and kind of save ourselves from such damage and loss?
As we know that to save our this climate from this global warming, we should have to move to the change our pattern of life.
Okay.
Suppose you say that we are the vehicles we are using, they are
Emitting carbon.
emerging different types of the gases.
True.
So your ACs, your this luxury
CFC
life,
carbons,
though
yes.
we are getting our life more luxurious,
Yes.
but the environment is being affected by these things. So, though one thing is that our you know that our this population or our urbanization, that is spreading on horizontal basis.
True.
We should then we make less or degrade our green areas. So, to make these things to be more viable or to have a green environment, we should have to move the vertical design of the buildings. So, you know that when you have horizontal buildings, their effects on the atmosphere, heating, observing and then emitting during the nights, they different. They have a really very much effect on our environment.
Right.
So, we will have to first change our lifestyle, and then we will have to make our environment much and much greener. Then we will be, though Pakistan share in the emission of the carbon or greenhouse gases is very much less,
Less than 1%, yes.
8%, but the transboundary phenomena are the countries near to our
Borders,
country.
yes.
China is emitting 16%. That is the most I think vulnerable, and even more than the whole of the Europe, and India is emitting about to 8%. Then its weather is also affecting some types of the weather movements are especially during the monsoon season. Winds are from the our southeastern side. So, we cannot mitigate these effects.
And obviously that requires a wholesome effort, because changing, like sir mentioned, or upgrading our lifestyle means that we have to cut out on a lot of luxury, and I don't know if we are prepared for that, but I think that is the need of the hour, to have a more contrasted and to have a more shrink carbon footprint. But now sir, let's talk about like Shahzad mentioned that yes, we are having the rainfall, but up until now we feel that it's a rainfall of the rahmat, but we really certainly don't know that if this rainfall will get more intense. And we've seen in 2022 that we had massive flooding in Pakistan, and that was something that was very unique to Pakistan's weather pattern, because that started from the south and that moved towards the north.
Yeah.
In the event of such sort of scenarios, how prepared are we as a state, and in terms of the weather predictions, do we have developed some sort of a weather patterns, or I mean prediction system that can inform the communities beforehand so that they can move and so they can relocate in terms of having a flash flooding?
Yes, you have talked about the weather patterns and some other things. You know, if you know, during the starting of the this Ramzan, we told the people that this Ramzan will be very much
Pleasant,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
pleasant.
pleasant.
And you have seen that it was really much pleasant.
Yes.
And even
Post-Ramadan is
before
also present.
post Ramzan we also issued the warnings that this type of the system, but these are one thing we when we talk about the we say that it has it will create losses or something else, but the things are on the opposite side also. Now the water that is coming to our this reservoirs, that is really very much beneficial.
Okay.
But the effect that these patterns are also receding. This year you have seen that no accumulative snowfall has occurred during the winter season.
Yes,
True.
yes.
So the very less snowfall that was on the mountains, that has got melted and have come to the. Now we will face during the monsoon season or during the this summer that our reservoir will not get as much water as we need.
That's exactly what I was about to talk as well, because we have seen that there's been a change in the harvesting cycle as well. There's enough, we do not get enough water as well. During summertime, you know, we do see that there are warnings that, okay, you know, there's water scarcity taking place. How do you think that we can manage around with all of this water that is coming in, that we kind of secure it for ourselves so we can use it for future?
Yes,
Sorry.
this is the nature law that Allah Ta'ala helps us.
True.
Now we are expecting more rains during the next monsoon season.
True.
So this you can say that whatever we need, that it will become I think
So I think one basic question which I would actually like to put out in front of you is that you अपने कंबल रजाइयाँ sweater बंद कर दें या बाहर निकाल के रखें?
no, that situation will not occur.
All right, so you know,
Okay,
what temperatures do you think that we will experience in coming days? Because imagine that today it's going to be around 25 degrees, just yesterday it was 17.
Today the high night temperatures we have observed that was about to 11 degrees centigrade. Now
Tomorrow, or day
tomorrow
after
it
tomorrow.
will rise up to some extent, but again it will drop. Because the another system that is secondary of the westerly wave system is approaching and even has entered into the southwestern part of the Balochistan. So again the temperature will drop, but that will up to this 11 degree in Islamabad and Lahore up to 18 degree and Karachi that is also being affected. That is more than 20 degree centigrade, 22 degree centigrade. But वो रज़ाइयाँ कंबल वाली बात नहीं है.
Yes, certainly, but weather is very unpredictable. But I guess one thing that we need to discuss, especially on the state television, is how much vulnerable are the local communities, especially the one which are living on the banks of the rivers or one that are really vulnerable to this onslaught of the rainfall. Because and how much the Met Department is in coordination with the local government there, because whenever there's a flash flooding, I think they are the ones who are the most underprivileged, and they are the ones who I mean they can lose their cattle or they can lose their own I mean valuable things, right? So what sort of a system is out there? I mean, and if there's a system out there?
Actually, this is if I talk about the forecasting of the system or predictions of the weather. On 8th April we issued advisory, and that was disseminated to the different stakeholders, even to the NDMA, PDMAs, all provincial chief secretaries, governors, at everywhere.
Okay.
No, they must have noted the severity of this forecast. Even we have made red entries on the forecasting paper that these are the vulnerable areas. So from yesterday, when I saw that there is a rising trend in the river Kabul and its tributaries that are generating from Swat or nearby areas. So we again issued alarming situations that this type of the very high flood situations may occur, and I think properly NDMA, PDMAs have taken the action. Yesterday I was noting the tickers running on the TV screen that they have got evacuated in some areas.
Exactly.
I predicted that up to 2 lakh cubic water may flow from river Kabul, and our agencies are they people know that if there is a flow of 2 lakh cubic water or high flood situations, how much areas can be affected.
Exactly.
So they have taken action or taken
And that action is
precautions.
necessary as well, and I think that the responsibility lies on the people, kind of live besides the water banks as well, or the river banks as well. But sir, very quickly, one last question, and that is that, we've experienced temperatures up to 50 degrees centigrade over here in Pakistan. People unfortunately weren't aware of it. There have been heat waves as well. So if we are to kind of talk about summers, alhamdulillah, we do not want that to happen because the air conditioner bills are too much on the pocket as well. So what would you say that, what maximum temperatures can we experience this summer?
You have noted that in Pakistan there are some areas that are very much hot. You can say that nowadays the trends of the temperatures to increase in the areas of the Sindh and southern Punjab. That the temperatures may rise up to the 45 degree, 46, 7, but the 50 degree centigrade temperature have normally been noted during the month of the May or the start of the June. So in some areas of the Sindh, Chor, Jacobabad and Balochistan, Sibbi area, they may have the temperature. But 50 is a very much, I think, too much temperature in the keeping in view the situations that has occurred. Now you are seeing that the temperature are up to the certain level that that must have to, but the 2 days, if there was a temperature of 40 and above, then we may expect that the temperature may rise up to 50 in this month. But that situation in the month of the April will not occur, but in the May or June that may rise to the 50 degrees.
And certainly there needs to be an advisory out there as well. But thank you so much, sir, for kind of answering all of our questions as well. If there's something that you think that we might have missed out on, please go ahead, share with our audiences, because we're not the expert of the environment as well. We haven't served as the DG Med department. So why don't you let us know that these are the things that we need to be really careful about, as those people who can actually have an impact of such harsh weather conditions out there.
Or are there any new projects in which the Med department is working, especially in terms
Med department is, you know that the Med department, as I compared it with the other countries, is working in a good conditions. Really, we have too many projects regarding radar. 5 radars will be installed in Pakistan. Wow. And 300 automatic weather stations. That the mostly that spread is in the Balochistan, that is up to 105 more weather stations, and in Balochistan, Sindh there are 75. So Met's situation is being really too much going to be improving, and you know that every event with its severity is forecasted well in time and disseminated to the stakeholders also well in time. So we are happy that we are serving the community, even serving the nation, and it is our duty. Really, if our early warning system saves the life of one people, and it is just like that, we have saved the whole community. So we work with this zeal and this mission that we will have to keep the community
and keep improving as well. I think that really needs to be the zeal and fervor of it as well. And
I think with the rising temperature, one thing obviously that with rising temperature we generally feel that our temperament is also rising, but I think one thing that guarantee is the sweeter mangoes, right? So 50 degree or 47 degree is going to guarantee more sweeter mangoes, and that is the delight of Pakistan. But obviously we are going to talk about the temperatures and what effect it has on the emotions around us, because weather also influences your emotions. Or does it actually influence differences. So we are going to have this debate. But thank you so much, sir, for
Thank
coming
you.
here,
Thank
for
you.
having this wonderful conversation. And after a short break, we are going to come back and we are going to delve into the very rich topic of emotions and how to regulate them. And it is one of the most well-talked topic. But how are we regulating it? Are we regulating it right? We will talk about it. Don't go anywhere.
Good morning.
Welcome back, and unfortunately my co-host had to be rushed to the hospital because he was not feeling well. So Shahzad, get well soon and may Allah give you shifa. Before going on to the break, I was alluding to the point at which we are going to develop the conversation, and that is the complex interplay of the emotions, perceptions and behavior, and how much our emotions affects our behavior, and are we aware of it when they are affecting our behavior. We are going to develop further conversation on that. For that, I'm very glad that we have been joined by Asif Rasool. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much for coming to our
Walaikum
show.
assalam. Thank you very much.
Right. So obviously there's a very complex interplay of the emotions, and nowadays we see that there's a lot of conversation on regulating your emotions, right? But how much are we able to regulate our emotions, and what needs to be done when you're feeling some sort of emotion?
Okay, thank you very much, Hajra. Actually, we need to go back to the roots, as they say in this, like one of the movies, where the protagonist gets to the last position and he's unable to find the solution of that, and then he said, let's get back to the roots. So basically, perception. How do we develop them? It's like when it comes to this part, it's like making the sense around the world and sharing that sense and meaning to the other people. Now, what are the different factors which are involved to develop this kind of perception? So we got like lotus, we call them like listen, observe, taste, touch and smell. So now I can see, like when I was young, I was just growing up. So I had one uncle who was serving in Saudi Arabia. So he used to tell me a lot many stories about Saudis.
Okay.
And from there, I just developed a specific perception. Then Alhamdulillah, I joined university. I started teaching to the senior and highly educated Saudis. And when I started interacting with them, Hajra, I could see a huge gap. Like my initial perception about Saudi Arabia, Saudi people, and then second, and when I literally communicating with these classes, that was the huge. So initially, the data gets into your brain, and you have got your parenting. Your parenting, it plays a very important role. That it is environmental condition, the environment in which you live. You just pick very strong perception about that, and they are going to immensely influence you. Then like the school which you go to, for example, I normally give this example to my class as well, just to develop their understanding. That, okay, now I'm just going to give you like one class in which you have got to have like some students from, let's say, HSN College, some from Frobels, some from a remote area of a village, and they all are there in your classes. Do you think that they all are going to behave in the same manner? They all are going to respond to you lecture in the same manner? No, they all are different, because they are schooling, that environment, it played a very important role. So this is second. Third factor is like your past experiences. Okay, for example, certain kids, those who have got like very good experiences in the school, so they always feel comfortable. They go to the colleges, they can show that like confidence and all that. Then fourth factor is the material which we read. For example, I can tell you, this is my perception. I can just on this show I can just say
you were consuming that.
I was just sitting at like one old bookshop, and I was just, Hajra, I was observing what kind of people are coming to this bookstore and what kind of books they are going to, apart from their like course material and all that. And there I just came across like this one female. She just came in this FX car. She came out, and then she asked the owner that, well, could you please help me to get this Alchemist? She picked that book, she paid the money, and she went away. And Hajra, I was like shocked. And I told my friend that, look, you know, it's a disaster. He said, why? I said, look, you know, this, my perception is, when we just look at this kind of household, the main target is to marry off the daughters, maximum till graduation. But the philosophy which she's going to pick from Alchemist, if she genuinely understands, she will never cave in, she will never surrender, and this would get like very dangerous and all that. So I mean, these all are the factors which are going to develop our perception. Now, our perception is going to affect our emotion, our perception is going to affect our feelings and all that.
Yes,
And there's a very
but
complicated interplay.
When we talk about the emotions, so for example, there's a lot of literature on how to regulate that. But now let's talk about the lesser emotions or the emotions which we feel does not connect to your higher self. For example, the emotions of jealousy or the emotions of envy. And we're all human, so we might experience them at some point in our life, right? For example, envy or jealousy. So do you feel when you're feeling those emotions, are they always a bad sort of a message to your body? And how do you think we can regulate them better?
Okay, all right. Haja, there is this like one factor which is incorrigible. I mean, even if we try, we cannot properly erase it. For example, personality type. Okay, for example, we just look at like extroverts. Extroverts, they meet to a lot many people, so they just gather a lot of data, they just change their opinion, they just change their perception as well. But then you get like other types of personalities, for example, introvert, sensitive and all that. I mean, even if they try their level best, still one way or the other way. Second is your parenting style. Okay, if you grew up in such an household where perhaps like envy, even hypocrisy, like children, they were just watching that the parents are talking against people. I mean, mothers are saying, oh, he's bad, she's bad, and your parents are. So obviously you grew up in that environment. How could you just pluck it out? It's not like changing the Sims and all that. So they will remain there, but still,
how to
if you
regulate it,
make conscious efforts, okay, you can just work on them. For example, Lave, we got this like one of the guy, happiest guy on this planet. He was a monk and he just went for a lot many
How can you measure someone's happiness? I mean, these are very, I don't know, very subjective sort of a tool, and it varies from person to person. But then once again, when we delve into the topic of emotions, it is such a vast ocean that you can't cover it in such a short period of time. But obviously, we will try to touch some aspects of that. And which is one of the, like you mentioned, so your emotional conditioning is very much important, right? But how much do you think self-awareness plays a role in a better regulation of your emotions, and how to have that self-awareness in the first place? Because a lot of time, what happens is that when we're experiencing an emotion, we are also telling ourselves a story, and with that story, we fall into the spiral of the thought process, and these thoughts repeat again and again in our brain, and that leads to, I think, a very chaotic position. So brain, which is supposed to serve us, is actually playing a very destructive sort of a role. It is putting us in a survival mode, right? So how to come or break that cycle?
Ajira, it's very intriguing and it's a very interesting question. I think this position does not allow me to ask you a question, but just imagine an angry guy, whether male or female. Just see them in any kind of environment. The moment there's a stimuli and it's going to trigger, it doesn't matter. They have got awareness. Perhaps the kids, they tell them, their colleagues, they tell them, their other relatives, they tell them. Everyone tells them that, look, you have got this problem, but they can't control it. This is a huge, and especially about anger. Okay,
Yes.
People know, but if we just make conscious effort, okay, and it requires a lot of effort, coaching, guidelines, understanding this material, it helps you.
Right.
Okay, just to regulate. And I think your maximum exposures, they play a very important role. For example, the environment in which you grew up, okay, and there are always like huge differences. So one way or the other way, they are going to affect. But again, your exposure, your reading. Now we have got the era of this technology. Through technology, you know, Hajra, like sometime we read stuff about certain event scenarios, but they did not affect us. Now when we just watch the videos about the same phenomena, believe me, it really helps us to completely understand this phenomena and just to carry it on.
Right, and I think that's a very interesting take on that, because especially nowadays when we talk about the anxiety, when we talk about the depression and the mental illnesses which are on the rise across the world, it's not just the Pakistan, so it's all about how emotions are not regulated, right, and which develop into a high functioning anxiety or the depression. So as a professor, I'm pretty sure you have observed a lot of students, right, and you might observe, because you're talking on the subject of the emotions, so how do you think as a student, because you are not at that point where you are very self-aware of yourself, right? So how do you coach your students, especially in having a better or the healthy regulation of the emotions? Because when you are young, I mean, you're very flying high, and then there's a young blood boiling inside you. So how do you control yourself, or I mean, better regulate yourself?
Hajra, you are putting me in hot water by asking this question, and especially to my whole community as well. You know, how many of us we listen to our students properly?
That's true.
This is one problem. And if we are very much reluctant, and if we do not have enough time to listen to our students, like when I just read about like cool teachers, old guys in old eras, they used to give a lot of time to their students. They would listen to them.
They were invested
and
in them.
even when the student, they just came with these shocking revelation and all that, but the response of these teachers were wonderful. And this literally helped them to regulate and all that. In our era, this is a challenge.
It's very
I am
fast-paced, yes.
openly confessing it. This is a huge challenge. You do not have enough time to, but yes, if you want to coach, if you want to guide, so whenever, I mean, they're very clear. You can observe your class, and this observation plays a very important role.
True.
You observe, then you can just take that group separate, like either 1, 2, 3, 4, engage them very healthy discussion, and when they just go for the proper self-disclosure. No, people are not going to openly self-disclose themselves to every Tom, Dick and Harry, so until they trust someone. So first of all, you're just going to provide them with a very nice kind of environment. They just open up, they share, and once you get to that wound which triggers this kind of behavior, I think you will be able to go for a kind of solution and all that.
That's very true, and I think in the fast-paced era, it's very important for a professor, for the teachers, because they're also the coaches to their students, to be invested within their students, because this is their community, and obviously when you invest in their kids, they are going to display, or they're going to polish themselves. But now, one thing which is very important, and I think we need to talk about and touch upon that is, especially when you talk about the emotional conditioning, and when especially you talked about the perception that you develop about the anecdote you talked about, the Saudi Arabia. So you had some sort of a stereotype in a mind, right? So I wanted to ask, is stereotype always a bad thing, or sometimes it can be a good thing? It can provide you safety or first-hand knowledge about a situation that you have to deal with it. And if you develop a stereotype, how to come out of it, or is it always important coming out of it? And what is its interplay with the emotions?
Hajra, one thing I know about you very well, that you always come prepared, but why today you are asking very tough question early in the morning? Thank you very much. This is again a very nice question. Yes, there is a problem like stereotyping. There is this like one researcher, he just shared this like one concept, that's like cheese slicing. Cheese slicing is that I just, for example, there's a very short meeting with Hajra. I just meet her. From your discussion, your talk, from content, I just perceive a little, and then I'm going to generalize ultimately.
Of course.
Maybe that's a very selective kind of
And that's a human
perception.
nature, yeah.
Okay. And I just organize this information, and then I just properly tag you.
Right.
That is like today. But if we have got this awareness, stereotyping in a negative way, I think it affects. Okay.
Right.
So if we just get the exposure, if we get to know about the people, for example, still there's a very funny incident, and so that's why this is my favorite topic. I take a lot of interest these days in this topic. There was this like one guy in my hometown. I don't want to name the guy. I just saw like he's a kind of landlord, he's got a lot of money and all that, but I always saw him like traveling in these local coaches, and I used to think that, come on guy, he is too miser. I mean, he doesn't spend money and all that, like skinny guy. And one day, like this perception remained for a very long time in my mind. I kept thinking that he's a miser guy. But after a very long time, let's say 5 to 6 year interval, this duration, when I met that guy and I had a very long conversation, believe me, the moment he shared his his take about this particular thing, he is a genuine philanthropist, and believe me, after revealing that, after getting to know that information, I was literally saying to myself, what the hell is this? Look at this, my misconception as a Rasul. I mean, I always, so this like stereotyping, it really creates issues and problems, obviously.
Right, and one last question before we wrap up this segment, because if the positivity
it's
of
going to be easy one.
That's true. So we generally see we are living in a digital era, and you talked about a very fast-paced era, and do you feel that there are certain emotions, for example, because we are constantly engaged in the social media and we are constantly projecting and curating one particular type of the life, right? So we have lots of filters and we are projecting our very best or the perfect image out there. So do you believe in this era it rewards some sort of an emotions and it does not? So for example, I do feel that the emotions of, or I mean, this fakeness inside us that is rewarded a lot on the social media. So you put up pictures and you put up a very shallow sort of, I mean, captions out there which you do not even mean it, right? And do you feel because of this sort of a mentality, we see that there is generally anxiety and depression and mental illnesses which is across the world on the rise because we are not following a very deep sort of a life. We have develop a very hollow sort of or very shallow sort of a life.
I second you 100%,
Yeah.
120%. Why? One is this, like generally when people upload and they've got like, when they just look at the uploads of other people, this is a kind of, when especially, we have got like a genuine self and then like this imagined self. There's a huge gap,
Digital
and
self,
this causes frustration and all that. And second is, Hajra, the problem with this like 21st century, like pros and cons. So now we just look at this negative point. Negative perspective is that all of us, we are now through the social media, we live into our own echo chamber. For example, if I'm a sensitive guy, believe me, Hajra, I've got like thousands of platforms where I can go and I can just pick the same thing. So it is obviously going to negatively affect me a
And
lot.
obviously that is why I'm talking about that we have developed a very curated lifestyle which is not always exploring the depth of our inner sanctum, right? And for that to develop, I think we need to self-reflect and pontificate over ourselves firstly. And with that, we'll say thank you so much for coming here, for having this wonderful cross-pollination of the ideas about the emotions, interplay of the perception and our behavior. And with that, I'll bid you good farewell. Allah Hafiz. Until next time, it's a goodbye and good morning.